Arsenal just beat Nottingham Forest 3-0 in which was a comfortable victory with a lot of different players playing. Now, one of them was Cristhian Mosquera, who I think was undoubtedly one of the best players on the pitch, proving why he deserved that start. And we have to talk about just how good this guy is at just £13 million. So let's get into it. Now, first things first, yes, I've still not had a haircut. I'm sorry about that. But second of all, Cristhian Mosquera, in my opinion, was definitely up for debate for man of the match in this game, maybe with a Noni Madueke, maybe with a Zubamendi with his 2 goals. And ultimately, I think that he deserved the start that he had. And I also think he's a reliable player to play when Saliba is still injured. You don't have to rush him back, which is great to see. Now, looking at the tactical board, I want to mention Mosquera's ability on the ball first, because I think it was the major driving point of why I really like him within this team. Now, Mosquera was in these situations a lot, and he did get pressed. There's many instances of where the front 2 for Nottingham Forest, they kind of sat in a low block. Their press was dreadful. I'm not really that surprised, but it was. And ultimately, there's a lot of times where this guy was kind of going by himself, where Wood would kind of be over here, not being able to come in and help. But the issue with that is it's still a pressing guy who's running quick at you and making sure you don't have long on the ball. Now, Mosquera in these situations, though, I felt held himself in a very high regard. And it's not the fact he was just always doing the simple action, which I think he does do the simple action like very well a lot of the time. It's the fact that he is willing to take risks. We mentioned this in our Liverpool video, which we did, where he wants to pass the ball inside at every given moment. But there's also moments where he wants to pass it around the channel into different avenues. And I think it really, really works. One of the major parts of this, I think I wanted to show here, we've got Odegaard, for example, but Waneri obviously came on early in the game. But Mosquera's picking the ball up in these situations. Someone's running at him, and he isn't just doing this lazy pass back to the centre-back or giving someone pressure in these ways, or even sometimes passing the ball to Timber, who can get pressed really quickly. Same situation can happen. There was many times where he was actually just putting this pass through into the gap to Odegaard. This player would honestly be shadow marking Odegaard and Timber. He didn't know which one to go to. What he would do is he'd bait it to pass this way and then go this way, and it would just catch this guy off guard and give Odegaard some time, meaning this guy had to push up and cover. And it wasn't just with Odegaard, this happened quite a lot. There's a few moments when we move some of the players over to the left-hand side where obviously the pressure's a little bit more. You know, you might see Forest pressing more intently in these areas. Eze's going to have to come back in these positions. You see it quite a lot. But Mosquera has this very good angle radius where we talk about his central passes, but ability to pass it into the channels as well. Being a 2-footed-esque centre-back, although being right-footed overall, is definitely a big reason for that. So if we bring on Ethan Waneri, he was in these sort of situations where Timber would come into here, and what we would do is Mosquera would be able to pass that ball between the lines to Waneri, who yet again that midfielder would have to go and cover. And this is great because this is the positions you actually want Waneri in. He can take this player on easy, he can go inside, he can go on the outside, and it gives your wingers isolated one-on-ones which you need down the wing, and it's that risk that you have taken which Mosquera did brilliantly on the ball. And we alluded to it into the Liverpool game that we did our analysis on Mosquera. But Mosquera has this sort of tendency to always want to pass it at least into access areas where you go centrally. Now, we don't need to go into the big problems Arsenal have had trying to progress the ball centrally. We've not done it enough. It was a big issue last season. But I'm starting to see Arsenal use it a lot more. Maybe it was the players playing in this game, but I just think the team are definitely directed in that way a lot more. Now, in this game, Mosquera continually will pass it into the central access areas at all given moments. I like it when he's in these deeper areas and has command of the ball because he forces players like Mourinho to come deeper, work with him, or allows players in the back to kind of make movements and create space there, which I think will be important. And also there's moments where he is getting that ball in defensive areas really deep, in these areas where they can get pressed and you might be able to lose it a little bit, and he always looks for a pass between the lines. He's not someone that really actually passes it to Timber that much on the right side, which you might expect a normal centre back to do, like Saliba for instance. But he always wants to go in between the lines. This can be a bit risky, but I love it, and I think it gave us a lot more directness. And I think with Waneri as well, it really helps him. He wants that little half-turn one-on-one areas where he can go and then run into space, and I think that works really well with him particular. And our last thing on his passing, last week we spoke about his weight of pass being a little bit too maybe aggressive. Maybe he was, not really familiar with the game coming in at that moment at Liverpool. I understand it. And I think in this game he had a much better level, much more assured in his passes, much more controlled, and he was putting him into great channels, I felt like. And I genuinely felt like Waneri got a lot better with Mosquera in that. I actually think them two work really well off each other, which is a very weird partnership you wouldn't really expect. And I also think Mosquera does still offer things to this right side. He is still in centre-back, but him and Timber can kind of rotate in certain moments, and I kind of love that. I think that's much more something that you could see with these two than someone like Saliba, who you want more in them centre-back roles, although he is absolutely amazing everywhere. Now, that was from a passing perspective of where Mosquera was. I thought it was brilliant, but we did see some signs of that in the Liverpool game, as well as the defensive signs as well. And in this game, yet again, I think his defensive work was absolutely astonishing. We spoke about his pace, we spoke about his strength before, but I think it just gives him much more ability to kind of take risks than some other players. And I think the concerns I had about him coming into Arsenal, maybe being a bit over-aggressive, I actually don't think are big problems, and I think it is because of his skill set he has. And the first thing I want to mention is probably his one-on-ones, because his one-on-one defending is class. And this is what I mean by this sort of moment. He can go down, especially these wider areas, and cover for someone like Timber if he needs to, and be very aggressive. If the areas are quite tight, he can just put his massive frame on top of someone and they just cannot get past. And I have said with the fact that he might be a bit over-aggressive, because he is so quick, and most of the tackles that he realistically does, like big physical one-on-one duels, are actually quite far away from the goal, especially in a game like this, I will say. It's not that bad of a deal. If he brings someone down, the worst it's going to be is maybe a yellow card, because he's so far away from the goal. And usually even then, it's not like a proper physical challenge. So it honestly doesn't give him much repercussions, which I kind of like as well. And although he is seen as that aggressive type of defender, and I think him and Gabriel have actually transitioned quite well with each other, which one does it and where they need to do it. But yet again, he can cover in behind when players are running into them areas. I thought he was excellent in that all game. And he's just super alert. His interceptions were mostly his key point, I think, looking at him at Valencia, and it clearly still has that. You know, he can press up and push into these areas and just take the ball and win it and go into forward areas very quickly. And I felt like in this game, his interceptions were key. I felt like his overall play and defensive work was amazing. Now, there's two big things I still want to mention in terms of his defending. Number one is aerially. I think he's improved heavily since the clips I watched of him at Valencia and the games I watched of him in Spain. Like I said before, it seemed like he was too busy watching the player and not the ball, and now he seems to have that sort of moment. He seems to have learned a lot after Gabriel, I can't lie, because the way he goes about things, especially aerially, are very much like him. Physical first, but always eyes on the ball, watching where it's going, making sure you're keeping your player contact-wise. In the box, I think he's a very alert player, and his headers away are brilliant, and I love it. But also, it's that aggressive type of player, one that is a backboard in many senses, heads the ball quickly from these like long balls, and then gets you back on the counter. Something I thought he did excellent in this game. And the last thing I wanted to mention in terms of his defending is the best moment in the game, which we have to talk about. That last-ditch tackle he did to Hudson-Odoi in the second half. Now, obviously, this whole attack comes from down the right, and it ends up bouncing off of Chris Wood's massive chest, and, you know, great save by Raya, puts it onto the bar. And then Mosquera does kind of get confused. I think him and Timber don't know who's kicking it. Bit of miscommunication there. Obviously, they are still new teammates, and that is something that you would expect to be sorted in the next coming weeks. But the thing is, it's all about the reaction after it. Timber actually ends up getting tackled by Mosquera, I think, and ends up getting put on the floor, which in hindsight is funny, but not obviously at the time. And then it looks like Hudson-Odoi is going to score, and Mosquera is able to come across, put his leg around, and calmly take the ball away. Who does that remind you of? That reminds me of Saliba and Gabriel, these top defenders who are calm in the box when it matters the most to keep the team going. That was one of them really key moments where, you know, maybe he made a mistake. It was a bit of him, bit of Timber, I think, in the original moment, and then he makes up for it with a calm tackle right when we needed it, keeping our clean sheet. And I think that's one of them key moments that you look at from a star defender. Now, of course, like always, let's go into a few of the stats and see how he actually did in this game. Now, you can see his impact just from the stats itself, not even just looking at the details. 76 passes out of 83. I just felt like he was so much better this game. A few long passes in there, which we haven't spoke about, but they were really excellent. I love how he passes it over to the left and switches it a lot. We needed that. We've missed that dearly in this side for a very long time. But 93 touches, 4 passes into the final third, 1 touch in the opposition box overall from a corner, I think. But it's his defensive work was insane. 6 recoveries, 2 interceptions, 2 headed clearances, 4 clearances overall, 1 last man tackle which we spoke about, and 2 tackles in the game. Overall ground duels won 2 out of 2, 1 out of 2 aerially. Didn't really have to do much in that sense. And obviously I think Nottingham Forest were pretty bad and we got them on a bad day in terms of their pressing and just coming in, and it kind of worked. But I still think the players had to turn up at their level. And this isn't a normal performance by Mosquera, and I know I'm someone that talks about players up a little bit and I look at very specific details in certain players what I want, but I think we can all see that Mosquera was a real star in this game and was in the Liverpool game which we spoke about a few weeks ago. I don't think this is a surprise that Arsenal have got another defender that is insane at this quality, but the fact that we have got him for £13 million is genuinely incredible. I said it at the time that this signing will be one of the pound for pound best signings this summer, and I still wholeheartedly believe that. I think this guy is a top player. He has the skill set around him and the ability to mold into different modes of himself, which I think really works, and he's going to get leadership from Gabriel, from Saliba, 2 of the best centre-backs in the world, so what more can't you love? Now overall, let me know in the comments what you guys thought about Cristhian Mosquera's performance. Do you think he should start against Bilbao, depending if Saliba's fit, or Man City next week? And let me know what you think about the game overall. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one.